Have you ever considered that the cruelty directed at you was never about you at all? That the dismissal, the belittlement, the feeling of being rendered invisible, was, in its deepest truth, a message in a language you were not yet meant to understand? A message not about your worth, but about the unresolved darkness within them. What if I were to tell you that the very question that has haunted you, "Why me? What did I do wrong?" is the precise question that keeps you trapped? It is a question born of the conscious mind, and the answer does not live there. The answer lives in the shadow. We must begin with the painful truth. You have been mistreated. Perhaps it was a parent who never validated your being, a partner who perpetually criticized you, friends who violated your trust, or colleagues who undermined your every endeavor. You have undoubtedly asked yourself 1,000 times, "What did I do wrong? Why me? Am I truly so unworthy?" In the view of analytical psychology, these questions, I must assert, have missed the mark entirely. The mistreatment you experienced was neither random nor deserved. I spent decades studying the human psyche, and what I discovered may well shock you. I found that human cruelty follows predictable psychological patterns that are independent of the victim's intrinsic worth. Yet here is where the matter grows complex. I also discovered that we unconsciously participate in these patterns not because we desire pain but because of a factor buried deep within our unconscious mind, something inherited, something we have never confronted. And until we understand this mechanism, we shall continue to attract the same sort of individuals who treat us in the same deplorable fashion. But why? Continue to give your attention, for the answer will transform your very existence. I have stated something that most people fail to comprehend. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Let the weight of this statement truly sink in for a moment. What I discovered through my clinical work with thousands of patients was that human beings operate from two distinct levels of awareness: the conscious mind of which we are aware, and the unconscious mind which controls as much as 95% of our conduct. The unconscious mind holds everything we have repressed, denied, or refused to acknowledge about ourselves. I term this the shadow. And here is the crucial point. Your shadow does not simply rest quietly in the background. It actively molds your reality. It influences whom you are drawn to, whom you permit into your life, and yes, how people treat you. In my view, the individuals who mistreated you were in fact responding to something invisible that you were unconsciously projecting. Not your stated aims or your conscious values, but the unresolved wounds, the denied aspects of yourself, the portions you have banished into the darkness. These people were not randomly cruel. They were drawn to you and you to them through a psychological magnetism that neither party grasped. I discovered that this entire process is completely unconscious. The person inflicting the mistreatment does not awaken thinking, "I shall destroy this individual today." And you did not consciously think, "I desire someone to inflict pain upon me." Yet the dance occurs regardless, orchestrated by forces below the surface of awareness. This is the dance of the shadow, and it is about to become even more revealing. I discovered one of the most profound truths concerning human relationships. We do not perceive people as they truly are. We view them through the aperture of our unconscious projections. I termed this shadow projection, and it accounts for everything regarding why you suffered mistreatment. Here is the mechanism. Every human being possesses a shadow, the parts of themselves they have rejected, denied, or been told are unacceptable. Perhaps you learned in your youth that anger was base, so you suppressed it. Perhaps you were taught that your necessities were irrelevant, so you denied them. These rejected portions do not vanish. They sink into your unconscious and wait. What we reject in ourselves we project onto others. But observe the paradox. We also attract individuals who embody the very qualities we have disowned. If you denied your anger, you will attract angry individuals. If you rejected your strength, you will attract controlling individuals. If you suppressed your voice, you will attract those who silence you. The person who mistreated you was likely projecting their own shadow onto you. They saw in you something they despised about themselves, something they could not own, so they attacked it in you instead. As I have stated, this is why abusers often accuse their victims of the very things they themselves are guilty of. The narcissist calls you selfish. The liar calls you dishonest. The cruel person calls you mean. But hold. There is a mechanism even deeper at work here, and it pertains to why you accepted such treatment. Remain with me. I have said everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. This is where many individuals experience discomfort. For I discovered something radical. The people who mistreated you were mirroring your unhealed wounds back to you. Before you protest this notion, permit me to elaborate. This is not about assigning blame to the victim. It is about understanding an unconscious mechanism that holds you captive. In my view, we unconsciously recreate the wounds of our childhood in our adult relationships. Not because we are inclined towards self-inflicted pain, but because the unconscious mind seeks to resolve what was never resolved. If you were raised by a parent who was emotionally absent, your unconscious mind registered that as, this is the very essence of affection. Consequently, as an adult, you unconsciously seek out emotionally unavailable partners. Not consciously, of course. You likely tell yourself that you desire someone present and caring, but your unconscious operates under a different program. One that insists, find someone who feels familiar, and perhaps this time we can rectify the situation. I discovered that this repetition compulsion is one of the most potent forces in human psychology. We are compelled to return to the scene of the crime hoping for an altered conclusion. The woman whose mother was critical attracts critical partners. The man whose father was absent attracts companions who abandon him. The child who was neglected becomes the adult who accepts mere crumbs of affection. The people who mistreated you were not accidental occurrences. They were, as I would categorize them, perfectly cast actors in the drama directed by your unconscious mind. They appeared to enact the role of the rejecting parent, the cruel authority figure, the betraying friend, whatever unhealed wound lay dormant within your being. And here is the most crucial point. They will continue to appear in various guises until you heal that underlying wound. You may change your city, your profession, your partners, but the pattern will follow you. I refer to this as fate when we are unconscious, but choice when we awaken to knowledge. The question is, are you prepared to awaken? For what follows will demonstrate the precise manner by which this is accomplished. I have found that there is something even more profound than the personal unconscious at work. I discovered what I termed the collective unconscious, a layer of the psyche shared by all mankind containing universal patterns of behavior I called archetypes. These archetypes are ancient psychological blueprints that we all inherit. The victim, the persecutor, the rescuer, the tyrant, the scapegoat. I stated these archetypes exist in every culture throughout history because they are part of the human psychological blueprint. When an individual mistreated you, they were often enacting an archetypal role and you were fulfilling the corresponding one. This is not strictly personal. It is transpersonal. The superior who bullied you was embodying the tyrant archetype. The friend who betrayed you was playing out the shadow aspect of the companion archetype. The partner who abandoned you is enacting the ancient narrative of rejection that has been repeated countless times throughout human history. I discovered that until we attain consciousness of these archetypal patterns, we remain trapped within them. We unconsciously step into these roles and play them out as if reading from a script composed millennia ago. The mistreatment you experienced was not unique to your person. It was an ancient pattern being repeated through your life. But here is the aspect of empowerment. Once you recognize the archetype, you can step out of the prescribed role. You can refuse to embody the victim any longer. You can reject the position of the scapegoat. I maintain that consciousness is the essential key to breaking free from these ancient structures. And this brings us to the most vital concept of all. I observe that most individuals traverse their entire lives wearing a mask. I call this mask the persona. The false self we present to the world in order to gain acceptance and avoid rejection. The persona is the identity you believe you must assume to function within society. It is the demure daughter who never expresses rage, the agreeable man who never establishes boundaries, the stalwart person who never exhibits vulnerability. In my view, the persona is necessary for social function. but it becomes a veritable prison when we forget that it is merely a mask. When you over-identify with your persona, you lose contact with your authentic self, the person you truly are beneath all external conditioning and expectations. Observe the connection to mistreatment. I discovered that individuals who live primarily through their persona attract relationships that serve to reinforce the mask rather than honor the authentic self. If your persona is, "I am the one who assists everyone," you will attract those who exploit your kindness. If your persona is, "I require nothing from anyone," you will attract individuals who offer you nothing. The people who mistreated you were often responding to your persona, not your authentic self. They perceived the inauthenticity, the tendency to please others, the boundaries you neglected to enforce. Predatory individuals possess a sixth sense for detecting when someone is disconnected from their inherent strength. They can sense a weak persona from afar. I discovered that the path toward authentic relationships necessitates the shedding of the persona and presenting oneself as one truly is, complete with wounds, needs, and boundaries. When you cease performing and begin being, everything is transformed. The people who mistreated the false version of you cannot endure the presence of the authentic you. Your genuineness repels those who require you to be false. But first, you must comprehend who has been feeding upon your inauthenticity. In my view, certain people are what I term psychologically unconscious. They reside entirely within their shadow without any awareness of their destructive patterns. These are the emotional vampires who depleted you. And I understood precisely why they focused their attention upon you. I posited that unconscious people are incapable of generating their own psychological energy. They must take it from others. They feed upon your attention, your empathy, your reactions, your emotional responsiveness. The more conscious and empathetic you are, the more appealing you become as a source of sustenance. I discovered that those who are highly sensitive and inclined towards empathy are especially vulnerable to these unconscious predators. Why? Because the empathetic possess strong psychological energy and are frequently disconnected from their own shadow. They have suppressed their anger, their self-interest, their very capacity for cruelty. Thus, they attract individuals who embody those exact qualities. The narcissist who abused you, the companion who exploited you, the partner who manipulated you. These people were drawn to your inner light as moths to a flame, but they were not attempting to share in your light. They were, in my estimation, attempting to extinguish it because it served as a painful reminder of everything they had forfeited within themselves. I stated that unconscious people cannot tolerate consciousness in others. Your growth poses a threat to them. Your healing exposes their wounds. Your boundaries reveal their violation. Therefore, they mistreated you in order to keep you diminished, to extinguish your light, to render you as unconscious as they are. But here is the juncture at which everything changes. For I discovered the counterforce. I discovered what I considered my most vital contribution to the field of psychology, the process of individuation. This is the journey toward becoming the person you truly are, of integrating all the rejected elements of yourself, of moving from an unconscious existence to a conscious one. And this is the precise method by which you cease to attract mistreatment. Individuation demands performing the most difficult act the human can undertake. Confronting your shadow. You must examine the parts of yourself you have denied. The anger you suppressed, the needs you disregarded, the strengths you relinquished, the boundaries you never established, the voice you silenced. All of it must be acknowledged, integrated, and reclaimed. I noted that most individuals avoid this process because it is inherently painful. It is simpler to blame others for their conduct toward you than to ask, "What capacity within me permitted this?" It is easier to persist as a victim than to reclaim your authority. It is easier to perpetuate the pattern than to shatter it. But those who undertake the work of individuation experience something extraordinary. I discovered that as you integrate your shadow, you become whole. And when you become whole, you cease to attract fragmented individuals. When you claim ownership of your anger, you cease to attract ragaholics. When you respect your own needs, you cease to attract those who take from you. When you establish clear boundaries, you cease to attract those who violate them. The energetic quality you emit is fundamentally altered. The individuation process transforms you from an individual to whom life happens into one who consciously creates their life. You cease to be a mere character in someone else's unconscious drama and become the author of your own narrative. But individuation is not a singular event. It is a lifelong commitment, and it commences with a solitary but potent decision. Allow me to illustrate the nature of that decision. I stated, I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to become. This is the precise point at which you permanently break the pattern of mistreatment. Breaking free requires both psychological comprehension and definitive action. Allow me to guide you through this framework. First, you must recognize the pattern. I discovered that most individuals are so identified with their suffering that they cannot perceive the pattern they are endlessly repeating. Examine your relationships with honesty. Do you persistently attract the same sort of person in different bodies, the same emotional unavailability, the same criticism, the same betrayal? Recognition is the first prerequisite for freedom. Second, I urge that you must withdraw your projections. Cease viewing these people as monsters and begin to see them as mirrors. What quality in them provokes your greatest reaction? That is your shadow speaking. If their cruelty enrages you, where have you been cruel to yourself? If their selfishness repels you, where have you denied your own legitimate needs? This is not a means of excusing their behavior. It is a means of reclaiming your own power. Third, you must grieve what you never received. The validation you deserved, the affection you required, the respect you earned. Most people bypass this stage and remain fixed in a state of anger or resentment. But I discovered that losses which are not mourned keep us bound to the past. You must mourn what never materialized before you can create what is possible. Fourth, you must establish new boundaries. I maintain that boundaries are the physical manifestation of self-respect. Every instance in which you enforce a boundary, you are signaling to your unconscious mind, I matter. My needs matter. I shall not accept mistreatment. Observe how rapidly individuals retreat when you cease to permit their unacceptable conduct. Fifth, I discover that you must consciously choose different people. Your unconscious will retain a pull toward familiar patterns. That emotionally unavailable person will still possess a sense of familiarity, a feeling you misinterpret as affinity. That critical person will still feel as though they are merely being truthful. You must deliberately override that unconscious programming with conscious choice. Choose the person who feels unfamiliar but who is truly healthy. Choose the relationship that feels strange precisely because it is secure. There arrives a moment in the individuation process where all things shift. I term this the transformation, the demise of the old self and the emergence of the new. And this is the point at which you stand presently, whether you fully realize it or not. I stated that transformation is not a comfortable experience. The old self must pass away. The people pleaser must pass away. The victim must pass away. The person who accepted meager provision must pass away. And death is invariably accompanied by a feeling of loss. Even when that which is dying deserves to be relinquished, you will mourn the old patterns even as you surpass them. You will feel the absence of the familiar pain even as you step into an unfamiliar state of peace. That I discovered that during this stage of transformation, you will be tested. The people who mistreated you may suddenly reappear, offering precisely what you once craved from them. This is the final examination of existence. Will you revert to the familiar pain, or will you honor your transformation? I noted that most individuals fail this test in the initial attempt. They return. They offer another opportunity. They believe that this time the outcome will be different. But genuine transformation, I maintain, means recognizing that these people have not changed. You have, and the person you are becoming no longer fits into the confines you once occupied. The old surroundings will feel too confining. The old relationships will feel suffocating. The old patterns will feel intolerable. This very discomfort is evidence of your growth. I said there is no coming to consciousness without pain. You are experiencing the pain of evolution. Embrace it. I provided the theory, but I also established practical instruments. Here are the precise steps you must take, commencing this very day, to ensure you never again accept mistreatment. First, I recommend that you begin a shadow journal. Each evening, record what provoked a reaction in you that day. Who annoyed you? What behavior was bothersome? Then pose the question, what does this reveal about my own shadow? This practice builds self-awareness more swiftly than any other. As I have stated, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life. This journal serves to make the unconscious conscious. Second, I discovered the power of active imagination. Devote 15 minutes daily to quiet contemplation or meditation. Visualize yourself establishing boundaries with the individuals who mistreated you. Imagine verbalizing what you were never able to say. This serves to reprogram your unconscious mind and facilitates the setting of actual boundaries in your life. Third, you must cultivate what I term the witness consciousness, the capacity to observe your own ingrained patterns without moral judgment. When you feel that old compulsion towards someone who is detrimental to your well-being, pause. Observe that compulsion. Say to yourself, that is my wounded inner child seeking what is familiar. But I am now the conscious adult, and I shall choose differently. Fourth, I stated you must find your individuation community. Individuals who are also committed to the work of becoming conscious. You cannot achieve wholeness in isolation. Nor can you heal in the presence of those who desire you to remain diminished. Seek out wise counselors, therapeutic groups, spiritual fellowships, or companions who are committed to growth. These people will reflect your light back to you rather than attempting to extinguish it. Fifth, I discovered that you must engage with your dreams. Your unconscious mind communicates with you each night through symbols and metaphors. Maintain a journal of your dreams. Take note of themes that recur. Your dreams are revealing what remains unhealed, what is prepared to be integrated, and what is attempting to emerge into your conscious life. Sixth, practice radical self-honesty. In my estimation, self-deception is the most significant impediment to individuation. Cease lying to yourself regarding why you tolerate mistreatment. Stop making excuses for individuals who show you exactly who they are. The truth will ultimately liberate you. But it will first necessitate that you become uncomfortable. I dedicated my entire life to studying one central inquiry. How do we become the individuals we truly are? And what I discovered was this. We become ourselves by integrating every facet we have rejected, by confronting everything we have evaded, by claiming ownership of everything we have projected onto others. The people who mistreated you were, in a certain sense, your most profound instructors. Not because they were virtuous or kind, but because they showed you precisely where the need for healing still resides within you. They revealed your wounds, your patterns, your unconscious programming. And now that you possess the vision to see it, it cannot be unseen. In my view, there are two sorts of people in this world. Those who are lived by the unconscious, and those who live consciously. The former group will continue to repeat the same patterns, attracting the same mistreatment forever, wondering why life is such an ordeal. The latter group breaks free. Which group will you choose to join? I said the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. You now possess the knowledge. The central question is, will you commit to the work? The mistreatment ceases the moment you decide that it ceases, not when the other individual changes, but when you change. Your transformation begins now. Make the unconscious conscious. Integrate your shadow. Become whole, and observe how every aspect of your life is transformed. The power has always resided within you. I bid you welcome home to your own life.